Well, we already had church, and that's awesome. I love it when that stage is set for me. I wanted to thank everybody that came out and did the human Trivial Pursuit. Not to brag, but us women, we did win the whole tacos. But here's the thing, we cheated, but so did the guys. But anyway, I guess we were better cheaters. I don't know. But I do want to thank you because we raised, drum roll please. Go ahead. $475. So thank you for investing not only your time, your effort, but your money into the younger generation that's growing up, because one day they will end up taking care of us. So we want to invest our time in them. So I want to thank you for that. Sherry, did you have something to say? Yes. Oh, good. That's awesome. It pays to serve him, I'm telling you. You know, if you don't have a Bible, please let us know, because we want to make sure that you have a Bible of your own to study and to read. The Bible sometimes gets a short change to the secular world, because the secular world doesn't realize what wisdom is in the Bibles. They'll go to the self-help section and they'll buy all of these books. And basically, I can tell you 99% of them are based on biblical truths. And I'm so happy to have this Bible because it speaks to me in my current situation. I can always find something in the story that if I don't get it at first, I'll stop back and I'll go, okay, God, I know you're talking to me through this story. Show me me. I want the Bible to be like a mirror to me, that it actually will read me and show me what I need to know for my situation today. I love it because not only is it for my situation today, but he'll show me what to bring to church that hopefully will help you out in your situation today. And today's story, a common story, but we're dealing with the disciples and a little bit of their worry, their confusion, their frustration, and they have some questions. And in their questioning, Jesus needs to shine a light on what the true issue is and cause them to remember. Often we forget to remember what's happened to us in our past as far as our history with God. If God has blessed you once, he'll do it again. Amen. If God has healed you once, he can heal you again. Amen. But we can sometimes forget to remember what he's brought us through and what he has for us. But I think now more than ever we should remember our history with him, especially in this year of 2020. It seems like 2020 to me has been one of the longest years in history, and we're still not through it yet. Everything has changed in this year, and it feels like we have more questions than answers. We all have had to sharpen our skills of adaptability. If you're a control person, that's really hard, but you have to learn how to adapt. But as strange as this year is, perhaps it's God's way of answering some of our prayers. Perhaps a prayer that sounded like this: God, the world needs to wake up and see that you are God Almighty. God, reveal the evil so it can be fixed. I'm guilty of that prayer. I'm like, roll back the curtain, Lord. Let the world see what's going on so we can get it better. Perhaps, God, the world is lost. Show them whatever it takes. Have you said that one? Whatever it takes, God. Show them, show them. God, I want to go deeper with you. How do you get deeper? By not relying on yourself. God, I don't have enough time. I need more alone time. I wish I could just stay home. I'm traveling all the time. I just want to stay home. God, I need more time with my family. God, if I taught that classroom, I would know how to teach those kids. I wish the world would just slow down. They're too busy. See, we need to not forget to remember. Maybe that's come out of our mouths before. Maybe that has been a prayer, and God needs things to change. And the list goes on and on and on. God is answering our prayers. We like to say, I want to be strong, but no struggles. I want to be changed, but no challenges. See, we can't have it both ways. I want a deeper relationship with you, God, but don't rock my boat. And see, in this story that we're going to talk about, Jesus was there in their boat. And they are in a quandary. They are going to be talking to the bread of life about bread. And what he does is he asks them some questions. So we're going to read Mark chapter 8, 14 through 21. So now the disciples had forgotten to take bread. I don't know whose role that was, but I'm sure they were all pointing fingers that you were the one in charge of the bread. And they did not have more than one loaf with them in the boat. Then he charged them, saying, take heed. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. Now, stop right there for just a second. Jesus is fully God, a deity, and fully human. And sometimes when they were talking to Jesus, they may have got the human side, but most often they got the God side. And how many knows that if you've had any conversation or God has given you a dream or a vision, that sometimes it's a little confusing? Here we have a God moment. They're talking about for their bellies, they need some bread. And he turns to them and they think, okay, he's going to tell us how to get this bread, or don't worry, we're going to detour. And instead he says something like, take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of the Herod. Has anybody ever seen the dog tilt? Like you hear something but you just don't know. I imagine that was a dog tilt for all of the disciples. And then he says, they say, and they reasoned among themselves, saying, is it because we have no bread? Like they don't understand. But then Jesus, being aware of it, said to them, why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? They're like, yeah, no, we don't understand this one. Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? Having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? This is what he brought out to me. Do you not remember what I've done? Why are you worried now? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of fragments did you take up? They said to him, 12. Also, when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many large baskets full of fragments did you take up? And they said 7. So he said to them, how is it that you do not understand? So what he was talking about, just to give you a little bit of revelation on the Herod and the Pharisee things, he was talking about, since he is the bread of life, anytime that yeast is talked about in the Bible and you need yeast for the bread to rise, it talks about doubt and sin and being puffed up with pride. So what he was saying was, don't get the thoughts of the Pharisees, religion, and Herod, the economy, and spoil the bread of life. There you go. That didn't cost you anything. So, but he's trying to tell them, I don't only care about your physical needs, I care about your spiritual needs. But he says, when I'm with you, you'll always have enough. If I came through it for you once, I'm going to bring you through it again. If I answered one prayer, I'll do it again. If I encouraged you once, I'll encourage you again. If I protected you once, I'll protect you again. See, we can't let the difficult times in our life allow us to cause us to forget what God's already done in our life. We wouldn't have time for everybody to stand up and give me an example of how God blessed you or came through for you or opened that door of favor in your life when everybody else said no, it wouldn't work. He said, I did it for you once, and I'm going to do it again. It is your history with God that should give us peace in this current situation. God, you're in control. You were in control yesterday, and you'll be in control today. If he did it for you once, he'll do it again. The feeding of the multitude, Jesus wasn't only concerned about their soul condition. He was concerned about their needs. And if it matters to you, it matters to your Heavenly Father. How amazing is that? That your wants and needs and desires, heartaches, complaints, if it matters to you, it matters to your Heavenly Father. But I want to look at the example of the feeding of the 5,000 and the 4,000. If you're not familiar with the story, there was a multitude of people listening to Jesus, and the disciples were there with him. And they began to get hungry in the crowd. And Jesus was able to take the little that they had, multiply it, and feed over 5,000 men, and that's not counting the women and the children. And the same thing happened with the 4,000. They were hungry. They needed food. The disciples had just a little, and Jesus was able to multiply it. Both of these multitudes of people, they had a problem. Where you have people, you have problems. They both had problems. But I want you to notice, in the 5,000 and the 4,000, the other thing that's common in both of those is one says that Jesus was moved with compassion. He knew how far they came. He knew that they were hungry. And the other, he actually said, I have compassion. Compassion came before the miracle. Compassion is what activates miracles. You need a miracle in your life? Ask God to give you a heart of compassion. Compassion is when care and action collide. Compassion will actually cause you to do something. It will move you to do something. Jesus knew their story. Ask God to show you people's story. You'll have compassion. So often when somebody misbehaves or they have a bad characteristic about them, if you'll take the time to get to know them and they'll share their story, all of a sudden that judgment goes off to the side and you've got a different compassion for them. It doesn't mean that you have to allow that behavior to continue, but you will pray for them differently with compassion. So you want a miracle in your life or somebody's life? Start with compassion. This is what moved Jesus when he looked up among the multitudes. It was compassion. But in both of these stories, the disciples ask the wrong questions. Jesus will ask you the right questions. And he will ask you the question not because he doesn't know the answer, but because he wants you to think about it. In the boat, he said, do you not remember when I fed the 5,000? How many baskets did you have left over? And he did the same with the 4,000. He wanted to remind them. The question was for them to help them on their journey because he already knew all the answers. But they asked the wrong question in each of these situations. With the 5,000, it was all about the money. How much money would this take? they had a guy really good with numbers that was in their crowd. And he said, well, according to my calculations, you know those people, right? You don't even have to get out a calculator. You'll just sit there for a minute and then they come up with the answer. This was who this guy was. It was Philip. And he says, well, according to my calculations and how many people we have and how much they would take each one, he says about 8 months worth of salary. And so they were upset. That was their question. What's it going to cost to solve this problem? That's the wrong question to ask. And then in the 4,000, they asked the wrong question again. They changed their wording. In the 4,000, it's odd because they don't talk about money. That's not the issue with them on this one. The issue on this one is they say, where would we find bread for these people? For these people. Not our people, the people. Where would we find bread for these people? So what's the difference between the 5,000 and the 4,000? It's the location. The 5,000 was in Jewish territory. They were all Jewish people. So the disciples were comfortable with them. The law says that's okay. But the 4,000, Jesus had taken them on a journey and they were now in Gentile land. They didn't know the surroundings. They didn't know the territories. They weren't familiar with it. They were in a land that they would rather not be in. And this time, it was filled with these pagans and these Gentiles. What are we going to do for these people? So sometimes when we face problems, we ask the wrong questions. And when we ask the wrong questions, you know what your result is? Worry. Because you're trying to figure it all out yourself and you're asking the wrong questions. Many times I will say, God, I don't know, but you know. This is on you. Because if you don't do it and nobody can do it and I can't figure out a way, I'm not going to spend my time trying to figure out a way. You just let me know what I'm supposed to do. That's the right question. The wrong question is coming up with your own plans first and then seeing if you can get God to fit into it. But Jesus asked the right question to them. In this situation, he says, so what do you have? It causes you to look at what you do have instead of what you don't have. And 2020 is a really good time to do that. You may have lost a job, you may have lost privileges, we can't do the things that we used to do, but what do you still have? Well, God, I have an able body, I can get up and breathe. God, I can still function. God, I still have a roof over my head. When you start looking at what you do have, then God can take and multiply that to give you what you don't have. So he asked them, what do you have? He wants each of us to look at what we do have in our life, what we can work with. So here's what I like. What they had when it was in their hands, it wasn't enough to really do anything with. But when they put it into his hands, then they would have more than enough. As long as we keep our problems, as long as we keep our worries, as long as we keep even our finances so tight, it may never be enough. But when you say, God, I'm going to give it to you and I'm going to let you lead and direct me, when you place it into his hands, it's going to be more than enough. If 2020 has taught us anything, it's taught us that we are not in control. If one of us were, I would ask you, then please change something, make this go away. But it has brought us all to a stopping point. And I think that's a good thing. I think it will give us time to reflect and remember that we serve the God that can stop it all and he can start it all back up again. that we don't have to worry about the right person getting elected or the right climate change bill or whatever it is, because when God has the plan, He's in control. And so we really should just say, God, we don't have enough maybe to even make it through, but I'm going to put that in your hands. So here's what He does. When He takes the bread, I want you to notice, He takes the bread, He blesses it, He breaks it, and then He gives it back. So when you give Him your worries, your life, your talent, your finances, and you say, I'm going to put it into your hand, and He's going to put His blessing upon that, and then He's going to break it. He breaks it not to destroy it, but He breaks it to change it. You may feel like you're in a season right now where He's breaking you. And He may be, but He's not destroying you. He's breaking you so that He can multiply and increase what's in your life. But I want you to pay attention to this. I thought this was so cool. Notice that they're able to feed all these people with the bread that they placed in God's hand, or Jesus' hand, that was not enough. But here's what's cool. It didn't start multiplying in His hands. It wasn't like, okay, now we have to hurry and scoop this up. He gave them the bread that was broken. And for some reason, it just didn't stop. So see, He multiplies His good works through people. How cool is that? He'll multiply your blessings through interactions with other people. The other thing that He was showing them is that He gave it to them, and He says, now you 12 feed these people. They didn't set up a buffet line. How long would it take for 12 people to feed 5,000 plus people? Jesus could do the miracles. Why didn't the bread just come down and hover in their lap? There you go, that works. It's because He was showing them that people need people, and He is there to show them how to interact. The miracles started happening and the multiplication happened because of interaction with other people. You can't have a blessed life and be an isolated person. It's eventually going to run out. It will either get you may have more money, but your emotions are going to be bankrupt. God shows us that if He is going to continue to multiply the goodness in us, it has to be through interaction of other people. Now, I understand the disciples worrying the first time when there was the 5,000. I get that. That makes sense. But when you saw what He did, and it wasn't very long after that they came up on the same situation again, and they forgot to remember. They wanted to know where they were going to get the bread. It should be like, yeah, we got this. Watch what He's going to do. No worries. But we do the same thing. He'll come through in a miraculous way for us. And we'll say, well, He did that, but He can't do this here. Just to give you an example, I did the same thing because I believed that God could cause blind eyes to open. He could heal people that were possessed. They could grow legs. They could grow arms. But for some reason, I had a block in this one area because I had read a book. And in this book, I was so excited for my friend to read it because I said, let me know when you get to the part about how we can look at God as God would look at a child with a little one learning how to walk. She said, well, what did it say? And I said, it's so cool. I said, we expect God to just whoop in anytime that we fall, but He's like a good parent. When the child's learning how to walk, if he would scoop us up every time that we started to fall, we would never learn to walk. But he stays close enough that if we are going to get hurt, he will pull us out of the situation, just like a good parent would. But if he knows that the area is okay, and it's just going to strengthen our little muscles, and it's going to keep us to get determined to walk, then he doesn't do anything, but he watches. So I was so excited about her to read this part. And so she finished the book, and she called me, and she says, I didn't see that part. And I said, yeah. I said, it's in there. And I even told her again, here is what the whole thing says. And she says, Twyla, it is not in this book. And I said, it has to be. She gave the book back to me. I read it again. It was in the book. I give it back to her. Read such and such page. Not in the book. She goes, God must have did it. And I said, God couldn't do that. I said, that was in the book. And so I had realized when that came out of my mouth, I thought, I have limited God of saying, you can do all this, but you can't change a writing in a book that's already been printed. So I can't really dog the disciples too much. But I can dog them in the fact of it was the same situation, just a different place. But they had forgotten. See, Jesus took them on this journey to teach them that if you're going to be my disciples and you're going to represent me to the world, and I am the bread of life, and if the world's ever been hungry, I think right now it's really hungry. He says, if you're going to be my disciples, you don't pick who you get to give bread to. You don't say, oh, these people, I don't know where I can find bread, but this group over here. He says, because I'm the bread of life, and this whole world needs to be fed. And if you're going to represent me, then you're not going to pick and choose. With us, Jesus will take us. He'll bless us. And then he'll break us. Not to destroy us, but so that he can multiply us and use us more. It's God that can use us more so that we can be a blessing to so many more. On the other side of your breaking, you'll have a testimony that will bless so many people. So let's not forget to remember what God's already done for us. And it's easy to do when it seems like we don't know what the next day is going to bring, what the new mandate is going to be, how much longer the businesses can make it. Let's remember that God is the one that has the cattle on 1,000 hills. All the silver and gold is his. That he has healing in his wings. That he's everything that we need. But it's in our interaction with others that God will cause us to be blessed more than we have ever been blessed. So I hope this week, I hope there was something in the sermon that will help you on your journey to remember that if you feel like you're being broken, he's not trying to destroy you, but he's trying to get you into a place where you can be a blessing to so many others. God bless you this morning.